Hello and welcome to this video I'm doing on the SimFlyer Garmin GNS 480. The Garmin GNS 480 and GMX 200 package is really not that expensive, but there is something to be said about buying things that have no real simulation value. And this is where this kind of starts off by saying, as far as I'm concerned, what you're looking for is a Garmin GNS 480 sim, because you may want to simulate it because you have one and you want to get proficient with it. This is not the item to buy. In fact, there's no item to buy. You can't use anything with the sim, unfortunately. You're still better off doing a Reality XP 530 or 650 or 750 for the sake of using things that are more accurate. However, they are much different. Now, in that, the irony being, of course, that there is a couple of items which it comes with that are the free bonus that, well, they're kind of nice. Those items are the audio panel, the transponder, and replacement VOR heads. And these are actually really nice. They look good. They replace the default gauges very easily and give a much better product, ironically, even though they're the piece that's free, and do simulate more of what's going on in the sim than the main thing that you're buying. Now, they do have a video
Delta 686 via Echo,
which you can see here.
Right, then contact ground, point center.
All right, Echo cross 4 right to ground, up to 686.
Chautauqua 3039, contact Boston departure.
Glow departure, have a great day, 3039. Wind check.
Wind 330 at 20.
Boston Tower, good afternoon, Citrus 863, the visual for 27.
Now,
Citrus 863, Boston Tower, runway 27, Fiddle Land, wind 330
what you're
at 19.
seeing
Fiddle Land on 27 for Citrus 863.
is a lot more to do with
Back at
the
1106,
200.
right, taxiway Kilo and contact ground, point center.
1106, welcome.
United 532, Boston Tower, traffic 2 mile final, runway 27, Fiddle Land.
As you can see, as far as it comes to this, the GNS 480 portion, you saw only a couple of seconds of interaction with the unit, which, based on looking at it, if you have a real one, you would think that the unit is close or is representing the real product, because from a standpoint of just seeing that video, it does represent how it lays out. So visually, they've done an okay job of trying to represent how the UI is laid out. Now, when you watch the 430 and the 530 operation, because the default GPS that's built into the sim is able to emulate those, they do a much better job. They can recreate those in the functionality of how it works. In their manuals, they do cover some of this information. So it's hard to tell. Maybe I could have found the manual and maybe I could read the manual. Maybe I could read something else. I'm not complaining that I didn't get my value. The manual itself does a good job of explaining what the 200 is capable of and the fact that it does a little bit, not much. And if you want to create charts for it, you're actually just loading up images that you have to stick in a folder to be able to view on the system. Now, first thing you'll notice when you get to the 480 UI explanation is it mentions that it doesn't replicate the real world unit, and saying that the lower right for tuning frequencies, however, practical reasons within Flight Sim, we opted for this quick tune method because there was no practical way to use one knob for functions while still keeping the units user friendly. So this is something when we get into the sim, I think I'm going to point out that makes no sense, because this is how the unit operates in real life. What do you mean it wouldn't be user friendly? That's how it operates in real life. What it just meant was they'd have to write more code and they'd have to do a better job in their XML. Now, what makes things worse is somewhere in here they missed one of their digits. So they've got cursor labeled as 1, though the power switch is labeled as 1. So all of these are off by 1, so it can also get confusing when you're trying to figure out, wait, transponder tuning? And that's one of the things about here, number 6. Number 6, these are line select keys, and in the real GPS, these do a lot of functionality. Now, as you move through and it explains a little bit about it, it shows you how these things operate, and then it gets into the extra items which are included. So the extra radio panel, the extra audio panel, the extra transponder. And the funny part is this little Garmin transceiver, so just calm unit, they don't even mention it in the purchase that it's included. So that just showed up, so that was kind of neat. And then, to me, one of the products that actually does the best job of recreating what the GTX is capable of doing is this unit, which is the Garmin GTX 330. It at least represents the best case for what they've done with simulating a device. This would be a product where if you're trying to get yourself ready for an IFR check ride and you want to be proficient, and you have a Garmin unit, whether it's a 330, a 335, or even a 345, these units actually do a very, very good job, and this would be a great one to pop in to have in the flight sim. Then they modeled the VOR heads, and these actually look really nice. They are much better than the stock ones, and we'll be able to review that part as well. When you get into the installation, it gives a bunch of information. It gives you some examples. The funny part, though, is when you get down here to the individual gauges, they don't have the SL40. You actually have to figure that out on your own. So over here, when I had to hack and crack away at my panel, I had to just type this in and hope that I named the gauge correctly, and then, you know, do some guessing at sizes about how you would lay it out. It doesn't go well into the virtual cockpit because you could have things in the model that break up. If you do go and build out a radio stack panel, it's not too hard. But again, this would be a better system for them to have shown, where here they miss it. Then the example they do give that you'd cut and paste, this doesn't have the audio panel in it, nor does it have the MX20 panel in it, but it makes reference to a couple of S-Tech panels and an S-Tech autopilot, which, again, that's not part of the system that they sold, and they don't give any explanation on it. They do go into the TCAS model and how you can add the functionality for TCAS, and then when they talk about widescreen monitors and how things fit, the note about the widescreen monitor is completely about their 530 series. Has nothing to do with the 480 series. So again, we're caught into this situation where I feel like the information is lacking. You are charging people money. It may only be $15, but it's $15. And you're presenting it as a simulation of a product. And I find that the simulation doesn't match up to the real world product. So let's go ahead and jump into the sim and see what we're talking about with the unit. Okay, so here we are in the sim, and yes, I'm intentionally right down at the panel. We are on autopilot, so hopefully we will not get into too much trouble. What I did was I made sure to create and edit the page so that we could see the audio panel in operation. Now, not sure why, but the lights on it do not light up. Have no idea, but there you go. First thing off the bat, nothing's happening. Now, if we listen to Nav1 ident, so the buttons are working, and of course the test you see nothing, but we do know that the buttons are working, but you just don't get the lights. So unfortunately, that's, you know, a failure on that first piece, that loading this in Prepared 3D. Maybe it works in FSX, I don't know, but Prepared 3D version 4 doesn't work. In the radio stack, I made sure to do the Garmin 480, how they depicted it. So we've got that, and that's visible. We've also got the GMX 200 in here. And again, these would be the 6 charts you could preload, so 6 files that you label like 1 through 6, and they're just image files, and that would be your chart. So it's kind of weak. This would just close, so every time you click on one of these, I guess it opens it up on top. I didn't bother putting any in because I thought it was pointless. You've got a function button, an in, an out, so that's to zoom into your map. So you're able to zoom into your map to see where you are. Essentially, this is pulling in a similar map and just doing a different overlay. And you've got your information that's present inside of it. Here we've got our panel for our COM 2. It's actually kind of nice looking. It's a decent looking product. They do it a little different, so that he does these, the developer does their own regions. So instead of an inner and outer knob, this is the large, and then the small is down here, not a big deal. Memory, recall, monitor do nothing, EC does nothing, but the transfer switch does work. And then of course you have your on off for it as well. Here what you'll see is we have the ability to toggle between nav and GPS. We can see that that part is alive. Obviously we want to be on the GPS. We can see that we are off of our course. So we're going to change our heading. According to this, we have a direct track of 093. So we're going to go ahead and go to 093. Here's the part where we get into how the real GPS works. Well, the real GPS works by having buttons. And so now when I click on COM, up here, the COM button just toggles the COM for active standby. Holding it does not give us any functionality. VOR, we get nothing. It's just a swap. Transponder is to fake ident. The CDI does toggle between VOR and CDI. The suspend button will do your OBS suspend. Now the function button is for toggling between whether or not this fake knob region, because that's not what this knob does, that's a volume knob, but this region is going to do control of your COM. Now down here you have the message button, which brings up the messages. You have a procedure button for picking your procedure. Now you can see right away this procedure is straight out of the 530. We have a procedure loaded, so of course we're going to pull ourselves around, and so we'll just keep on turning as we head away. Flight plan. Now again, this is bringing up a flight plan that would follow the built-in sim flight plan. It is not able to be built inside of the unit, so you can't simulate anything. And then for transponder, they created this button here where you can dial up, individual buttons to change and dial the transponder. And you have to click on it again to make it go away. But even when you're not viewing it, these buttons control the transponder. They are not the proper line selects like they should be. Up here on the left-hand side, we'll do a range out. On the right-hand side, we'll do a range in. And then this is the toggle between map 1 and map 2, which is really a declutter setting. Unlike the 4 maps, where with our 4 maps, you use those in the 480 for other aspects of it. Nearest brings up the nearest page, info brings up an info page, and clear functions as the clear, and direct to will go to the direct to. Again, not really how the 480 works in real life. Now what's nice is Garmin does have a GNS 480 simulator, simple simulators that you can get accustomed to how it works. Now what you'll notice is when you press the COM button, it toggles between the base mode and the functionality being assigned to COM. So when I hit my COM button, the knob is now following along with the COM control. It is not following along with anything else. Bottom soft keys now become your squelch control, monitor if I want to monitor. So What's neat about monitor is I would have 118 as my dialed in frequency while monitoring 118.1. Say I was tuned into the ATIS. Now I'd be hearing it, but as soon as a radio call would be made on 118, it'll automatically mute this so that you don't miss it. So in some cases that's better than using a second radio, because stop that audio prevents you from missing a call because the second radio was too loud. Recall so that you can look at your recent. And this is an example of how those soft keys work. So those soft keys on the right hand side are going to go to my recent frequencies, and now I can use the knob to dial between them. I could go to user, so any of my user list if I had created some user ones. And of course we can automatically dial in, right, the emergency frequency, which will put 121.5 in there. And this is actually your transfer switch. So now that's how I would be transferring my COM. And as soon as I hit function, it goes back to the main page. As soon as I hit VOR or I press COM, it follows to that page. You press it again, it goes back. And with your VOR, it works the same way. I can listen, so hit the ID so that it would be listening to the ident, so I'd hear the value. I can go to recall, so I can do recent and users, so I could see the recent frequencies I may have used. I can pick that, and when I've picked one of those frequencies, I can of course send that to the standby. That's another way. These two don't function anything alike, and so you can tell right away that this is not operating the way a 480 should operate, and is not going to be something that you can easily simulate. Same thing if I was going to swap those frequencies. Now that becomes my swap button. When we go to the transponder here, by clicking on that, the soft key switch to ident standby on altitude. And so you can control a separate transponder directly from the unit. So you may have a mounted unit that is not a panel mount. It's just the box that's behind in the panel or in the tail. And this becomes your control head. So this even works with newer Garmin ADS-B units, which is pretty cool. Over here with your menu, you'll see that for this menu, I've got emergency, I've got VFR, I've got trigger speed, I've got auto, right? So in auto mode, it will know when to automatically flip. And also, if I wanted to quickly select VFR, it would automatically tag me for VFR. Of course, if we go to the transponder, right, and we go to ident, that's how you would actually ident. And if we wanted to trigger speed for auto mode, 6 knots, so at 6 knots it's automatically going to switch into your unit. So then we hit the function button, and you'll notice the function button is what toggles between all of your different functionality. So that creates these soft keys and easily switches them. Has nothing to do with this. But that's the beauty of the way that this works. When you are on the transponder, right, and I click, now all my soft keys can go into a quick mode. So we can go 6, we can go 5, and it'll automatically track as well. So there you go, 6250. So if I had to just hit once, now I can go 2, 5, 7, 3, if that was how I was issued. So this knob is not something that's hard to do. You have some states, you set your menu. When you hit the direct to, a direct to is much different in a 480 because you can do direct to and punch in a specific location, or you're able to pick from and set up holds. So I may want to set up a hold, which I can't do in this other unit, which I really wish I could do. I could a destination, so replace active with the current destination, clear to get out of it, and of course more. I could set a course to, a course from, an OBS. So this has a lot of extra functionality in how you can do it, and that's from a database. Or I could be doing a direct to from the active flight plan. And what's neat with this is if I had my flight plan in here, so we're going to go function, we'll go flight plan, and we're going to create a new flight plan. And this is how you create it. I click on New, and now I pick my origin. So let's say that it was KNZY. And so we hit Enter, so the Enter button. And now it asks for our destination. KSAN, we hit Enter. So now it's created our new one. So we can save this, right? And we can also execute it. There is our flight plan. That's how we're going to it. And if we went to Direct to, and this is what's neat. We could go direct, so we'd highlight where we're going, and we would hit the direct button. And it would go to direct to it, which is not something you can do even with a GTN 750. You're in your flight plan, you can fly the leg, but you can't really just go direct to that piece and not break it up. So that's a big thing that I like about how that works. Also from the main one, I can go to procedure, and we can do our approach procedure. We're going to do an ILS, right? So as you can see, this is so much easier to navigate with. And we could, instead of vectors, we could pick where we're going to start from. So we're going to start from Gatto. We're going to go ahead with that, and we would hit Enter, right? And so now we've got our ability to fly our flight plan. So if we go to function, we go to procedure, right? And so we could go procedure vectors to final, or we could go execute. Click Enter. For loaded approach, not use GPS. Yes, we know. Yep, and it'll even tell us the frequency we should be on. So away we go. So now, what's nice about this is you can see what it is that you're doing. You can view it, and you know how it's going. There's a lot more going on inside of a real GNS 480. There's holds. There's how you enter with the teardrop, there's the course, there's the flying. Obviously, there's a lot more. And what's nice is you could fly a leg, so you can activate a leg, but you can actually go direct to that item inside of your flight plan. This does make changes when you've set up a star or set up an approach, and they give you something to cut the corner. Well, now instead of having to reprogram or having to switch into heading mode, fly it by heading mode until you can get back on that leg, what's cool about this is you can just go direct and skip through on your own. You could go to the destination, you could enter a new hold because they jump at you with the need to enter your own hold. So you can pick your item, pick as if it's left or right hand turns, what the radial is, what your 1 minute inbound or 2 minute or 1.5. It's really easy to use. That's why I like the 480. And this is what I wanted because of its complexity, because it has so much. I was really looking forward, hoping that I was going to get the opportunity in this unit to be able to emulate that. And unfortunately, we just really weren't able to do that, I don't think. And that's the only part that's unfortunate about it. What is kind of cool is the fact that you've got this, the Garmin GTX 330. And this is pretty awesome in the way it operates. And I have to say, I would definitely love to have this unit if I was, well, I have a 345 that we use. And so the functionality is very much there, right? There's your flight time, your alt monitor. Obviously, it's not actually picking up that information, but you've got your count up timer, stop, clear, which is very helpful if you're measuring your time. So if you're doing an ADF approach, how many minutes from when you cross over the NDB until your approach starts, or if you are doing holds, well, the hold is great because you can have your start, and when you hit your 1 minute, you do your turn, and you could easily hit the clear, which won't interrupt the start stop. So you can start your next minute as soon as you've finished your minute and finished your turn and you're back on the heading. Really like the Garmin GTX unit. The SL40, sure, it's not bad. It's a freebie, and it works. And if you wanted something like that to replicate, to throw in your panel, it's good. I don't think the GMX 200 is worth anything. It's useless. It's pointless. It looks neat because it worked in real life, but that has to do with the real 480 in making it work. To be honest, without that, it's kind of pointless. The 340 audio panel, well, as you can see, there's something in it where unfortunately it's not lighting up, and that has to do with old code. These guys though, the VORs, they're nice. They're really nice. They look good. And what you'll notice here is down here with the original, so I replaced the ADF with the original VOR1 indicator, and you'll notice it's got the glide slope and your bearing needle. But it'll just tell you nav, or if the nav isn't functioning, it'll flag it. Whereas up here, what's really cool is it's like the real Garmin head. It's got the GPS. So if you're in GPS mode, or if you're in CDI, or if you're in VLOC, it'll go into VLOC mode. So back into GPS. Now, yes, there is a button for that, a function in the annunciator, but it's nice to have it directly in your unit. So it's good to see. It's pretty cool. These look pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look out a little bit. We're going to see that, yeah, we can fly the approach. Yes, you could play with the messages. All that information is there. We'll go ahead and close this window. We don't really need to see it anymore. We'll dock that up a little bit higher. So at Gato, and so here we should be so there's our VOR. So now we're capturing the localizer. The glide is well below us. But it'll tilt down now and go find it using the autopilot. So we'll throttle back. So we'll slip it. We'll dump in our flaps. Oh, and let the autopilot do some S-turns, trying to recapture the localizer. But you can see in the ILS, this one's a little jumpy, whereas this is really smooth and a real representation of the real gauge. So now we're below, we've got our nice little 2. The only thing I find a little strange is how this is working with a course of 390 when it should be our radial should be 095. Yet it had zero impact on what we were doing. But again, that's not the GPS, that's just the autopilot and FS, well, prepared 3D. But as we can see, the accuracy of the needles, the real quality of that product, it's a very nice unit. So now the glide slope is coming in, and it should pitch over. So there's the middle marker. Trying to chase it down. Well, there you go. So, yeah, the sad part is the 480 and the whole reason for buying it. Ironically, the cool part is what you don't realize you get, which is the GTX 330 and the VOR heads. They're actually really, really good. The GMA 340 is useless. All the lights don't work, so that's not pointless in getting. And the SL40 is great, but you have to figure out what the gauge is called. So, I mean, all in all, it's a pretty cool product for what they've attempted to do. What they were attempting to do was create a cosmetic example of the Garmin 480. But that's really all it is. It is a cosmetic example. It does not reflect the real unit, and you can't really use this to simulate it. So in reality, I don't know what you would do with it, because it sure doesn't have anywhere near the level of control and capability that you find in the real 480. You might as well take that $15 and put it to the side and invest in, say, the Reality XP GTN 650 or 750, or if you're using a legacy product, you stay with the 430 or 530. But this guy, I would stay away from. I think it's a bad example of how it's used, and I don't think it will get you any value. So that's my piece, and considering I actually have a 480 that I use, I think I have a valid beef to put with the fact that this unit claims to be a GNS 480 and doesn't even come close to what a GNS 480 does. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day.